dark fiction novelist. He's an Amazon bestseller. He's known for titles such as Semi-Animus and My Girl. How's it going, Rob?
It's been great. It's great. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on the show. It's a real treat and an honor. Thank you.
Okay, well, likewise, Rob. We are really honored to have you. You're a dark fiction novelist. That's a really awesome title to have there. How did you become a dark fiction novelist?
I wouldn't say by default, but by sort of, I just seemed to fall into it. It wasn't by design. I started off just, I started writing a long time ago, went away from it, and during a very bleak period, I ended up writing again, just writing things down. And
has writing always been a process in your, since birth? Was writing always something that came natural to you? Did you have notebooks? Were you a writer by nature, or did you discover writing sort of as a necessity to have an outlet to put out your emotions and your feelings?
A bit of both. I did a little bit of writing when I was at school, but never really considered it or anything like that. Although I did love our English classes, especially the literature, where you really got to delve into the books, and I had an awesome teacher, and so I really enjoyed that. But I never really thought of writing as something to do. I was always, as a kid, I always angled towards the sciences, and I really wanted to be involved in biology, and especially sort of nature and things like marine biology and things. So I went that way with schooling. But I would write things down. I had periods where I thought, I could write songs and things, which was not ever anything that would ever happen. I'm not the skill of a musician or lyricist, so that
you would write songs. You would write some songs.
When I was younger, when I was in my teenage years and my younger years, I would write them. There wouldn't be anything, it's the same as any young kid writing a song. If someone proficient and skilled were to take it, they maybe do something, but usually it's the same. It's a typical kid thing where it's not really anything of substance. It's just, you think you can do something because you see other people doing it. You don't realize the skill and everything, methods that go into it. But I tried that. But as I say, writing never really come to me mentally as something I really wanted to explore. But I loved doing it. I just didn't realize it. So
where did you find that passion then? So where you were living in the United Kingdom, you went to university, you pick us up from there. I'm really curious because it's really awesome. You got your background's really cool. I see there's a lot of creativity, and I just feel it all. I feel everything, and I want to just know more about it.
It's not really that special. I mean,
what are some of your favorite dark fiction novels that sort of made you say, this is a world that I identify with, and I myself am a reader, and I love all sorts of books and novels and whatnot, but dark fiction, I can't really think of what's a really popular dark fiction novel that maybe everybody might know?
Well, for me, it's an eclectic mix, because if you go down with the really dark end of things, then obviously someone like Clive Barker is hugely influenced.
Clive Barker.
To me. So Clive Barker, so he, with Hellraiser, and one of his greatest books, as far as I'm concerned, was a book called Galilee. It's a huge book. I've got it somewhere around here. It's a massive book.
Galilee is the title.
Galilee. There we are. Galilee. That's the hardcover book.
Ooh,
it's a big chunker.
Wow.
And I've read.
Gotta be like 3,000 pages in there.
It's about that. It's about 582 in this copy.
And this is the same author as Hellraiser.
Yeah, same author as Hellraiser. That book really struck me, and I went back and I listened to it on an audiobook. and I just absolutely fell in love with the characters in there. It's such an incredible world that he creates in his novels. So, you know, his work always struck me, and it's very, there are so many layers to it. He obviously brings in a religious context to his work. There's a sexual context to his work, with homosexuality and things like that. So he's a major influence, but then I've got influences from Lovecraft, with the, you know, a creature or a being coming and you don't quite see it, and but it's there and you know it's there, and it's those elements that come into it.
Oh yes, sort of that's sort of the element that made the slasher films very captivating. You know, the element of something being there, but you know it's there. It's just there. It's waiting to happen.
That's right, and so they kind of influenced me. Edgar Allan Poe is another influence. So, and then you get strange influences would be, which people wouldn't expect, but there's so
let me ask you this: how does a good writer integrate those layers into their writing? These writers that it compounds. It's not just writing. There's so much within writing, you know, that a word can go so far. And it sounds like you understand these layers and the writings of these people that you have taken notice to their work.
Yeah, for me, it's not something that I purposely think about incorporating. It's a natural. So I think it's understanding the influences. You know that they influence the way you think. And so when you go to write something, especially when I go to write something, I'm not thinking about the structure of how it's written. I'm not thinking about plotting it down, because I'm what they call a pantser, where I write by the seat of my pants. And so I'll have rough notes, like a very basic, not even an outline. I might even just have a paragraph of just the idea, very loose idea. And I'll start to work from that. So I'll start with where you would start with the beginning. And so I'll see how I can introduce it in something. And then I'll just let it flow and let all the ideas that might be in my head just come out as I'm typing. And then obviously the hard work comes later when you go back and start editing. But so the layers that form a story, for me, they come in more naturally as I'm writing it, rather than setting out saying, right, I want to incorporate this, so I need to put this down, and I need to form, you know, this section. I need to have this kind of scene. A lot of people plot it all out meticulously.
It sounds like you're very open. It sounds like you're really open to allowing it to enter and access your nervous system, and just you let yourself feel everything, and that's not something that comes easy to everyone.
I mean, I'm very empathic, I think, when it comes to writing. That I absorb everything. So there'll be many authors, and I absolutely that I'm so in awe of and respectful of, because they are a massive source of knowledge, and they can just run off examples and tell you things that you can do, and it's just a source of great information. And I don't kind of hold that information to the fore. I can't sort of say to her, well, you know what you need to do here, blah, blah. I'm just like, I absorb that information, I just let it flow. And I'll say to people occasionally might ask me for advice, and I'll say, you know what, the best people to ask are this person, because they have really studied the craft. And
yes,
I'm not someone who studies the craft. I kind of feel it. So I can be a mood writer. So if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to write. And to be productive, you have to write, you know, even if it's 100 words or so. But if I'm not feeling it, I know those 100 words are going to be a complete pile of dogs, you know.
Right.
So I'm not going. I won't do that, because I won't be happy with it myself, and it's only going to get deleted and thrown away. So I'm not. I'd rather come to it, let it flow, and then tidy it up later and see how it goes from there. That's when I feel much freer. I feel much better once I've got something down, and it's just been natural to come. So, so as I say, the craft itself, I don't.
How long did it take you to write your first book?
How long? That was what is strangely quickly, because it wasn't something that was intended. When I started writing more, I wouldn't say more seriously, but I really started getting into it. I was putting up little blog posts online, and this is back in a day. I'm old enough, people have to be prepared. I'm old enough for this to say I was on MySpace. So so there'll be
the dinosaur days.
Go, what the hell was MySpace? We hear about it, and I'm one of the old enough generations to know I was there when it started up, and I was on there. But I made a few friends on MySpace, and some of those were they were horror fans. So I've always been a fan of the horror films, horror fiction. So I've always been
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but up until MySpace, there wasn't really a very largely accessible way to interact with communities that identified with similar things as you. I mean, you could obviously add to that, but where could you online find these maybe small time blogs? But that was probably the first one I can think of that really.
I mean, I did. There were lots of. I mean, before then, you had lots of chat rooms and forums and things like that, but it wasn't a space where you could actually write down an idea or anything like that. And so MySpace, because of its design, you could write huge posts down, and people could sit there and read it at their leisure. And I started just having a bit of fun, and because I've got influences in classic horror movies, so I've got you'll see things like I've got posted which have got I've got figures like Boris Karloff and all that. Mm-hmm. Boris Karloff is a huge influence in movies for me. And
can you name some titles for us?
Sorry?
Can you name some titles for us that maybe the audience might recognize, or just say, hey, you know what, I know that one actually. Some of your favorites.
Old films you like, the Bela Lugosi, Dracula, and Boris Karloff's Mummy, or you got Horror Express, the Hammer horror films, like The Devil Rides Out, and it's these films that influence me, especially the old Universal horror films, which have Dracula and Frankenstein's once,
talking about this. And hearing you say this once makes me want to just watch those movies. I want to just get some popcorn.
Absolutely amazing. And you really, anyone who's interested in horror really needs to go back and see those, because you see where the craft as it really begins to take off, and
the birth of what it really came from, because now it's sort of like watered down. It's sort of like the original formula has been filtered through.
Pop culture level where, so, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the more accessible it is for people, because it's always a way for people to face their own personal, which are not necessarily to do with the dark or a creature from the dark and spiders and whatnot. It's to do with family, culture, societal fears around society, and it's a safe space for them to explore those fears, to face them.
Absolutely.
So then and this is one of the things I've said before, is the reasons I come to really appreciate being able to write, and inspires me to keep writing and keep doing it, is if I write something and it really strikes someone, and it might really scare them, I want that. And it's not because I want to scare them as such, it's because what I'm doing for me is, if I'm scaring them with the page or whatever the case may be, what they're doing if they can face that fear that they've got on the page, they can face whatever the fears they've got, then it allows them to know that they've lived through that, they've come through it. So then whatever they know, that whatever the world holds from outside, they can step out onto their front doorstep and know that they can handle whatever comes to them. They don't have to be afraid of the outside world because they've faced their worst psychological fears and phobias, and they've got to the back cover and they've finished it and they've come away from it and they're still okay. They're not, nothing bad's happened to them. So they know that no matter what the kind of torture is, whether it's bullying, whether it's social isolation, whatever, they know that they can face it and they will come through, and they know that there's people there that will think similarly, that fear the same things, and there's a community there for them. And so they know they can go out the front door and feel confident. And that's what I try to do, is give them the courage to go out the front door every single day and face the world. Because what I want to remind them is, whatever you face on the pages of whatever I've written is infinitely less terrifying than the real world. The real world is full of limitless terror.
You think this?
But we still face through it, and it's reminding people, look, you just read through this, and yet yesterday you went to work and you came home. Tomorrow you'll go to work and you'll come home, and yet out there are infinite more terrible things that can happen to you. Yet you don't fear that. It's not on your mind, and it's reminding them that they can do that no matter what happens. They can come through and they can have that. And it's trying to, in a way, bring those fears that some people have of the outside world and of other people, and trying to break down the barriers of isolation from people who, whether it's blocking people out because you don't like their religion or their race or their sexuality, and it's breaking those barriers down and knowing that it doesn't matter.
It's sort of an archaic way to think. A lot of people are stuck in their archaic ways. I think in the new world, we're trying to allow that. You got to be more open-minded about everything. I think if you're stuck in these archaic ways, you're sort of missing the train of progression, of reality that is right in front of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of why I do it. So, so there wasn't, and so, as I say, so that's why I was kind of writing it online, and I got these people saying, I was just writing these little blog posts and people were getting onto it and they're saying, I really like this. And it encouraged me to write another bit. They were saying, oh, I want another one. Follow on what happened next. And you think, oh, I've got to find, I can think up a situation will carry this thing on and keep rolling. And it kept rolling until I kind of got to a slightly natural conclusion with it. And
naturally.
Someone on there, and I can't, and it's a sin of mine because I beat myself up with it every day. I can't remember for the life of me who this person was, but they were absolutely key to the whole thing really snowballing properly, because they said to me, these blog posts you put up, and I was like, yeah, and they went, I love them. And there's so many people really love them. And I said, this will look, you know what, look really good. This would look good as a book. You should put these together and put on a book. And I knew nothing about writing books. I knew nothing about putting a book together, absolutely nothing. And someone said to me, there's this website where you can do it. You can put your stuff up and they'll turn it into a book. I went, really? I mean, yeah, you can do it all yourself. And I was like, no idea. And so I went to a website. It was lulu.com. I think they're now part of Amazon. And so I went to them and I did it. And
did you have a lot of material, or did you have a rough draft? How long was your draft? How did it work?
I pretty much put it together using the blog post. I just pretty much knitted the blog post together and just put it as a page, because it was like a journal. It's like a diary entries, and it covered about, what I say to people, it covers about the expanse of about 6 months in the narrator's life, and the narrator is the key person in the story.
That sounds really great, actually. I think that sounds really awesome.
And yeah, so once I did that, and I got the copy back, and it was, I didn't know anything about sizing books and doing book covers or anything. So it came back, and it was an A4 size book, huge looking A4, like, A4 pad size, and it had a simple red cover and black writing on it, and that's all it was. And I sold maybe about 4 copies, I think I probably sold in the whole time. And my wife's got one of those copies. And
but you put it out there, and it was out there for
exactly. And I was really proud of it. And to be honest, I'll say to people, if you find that copy, it's rare as hen's teeth. But what I'll tell you is that you might be proud our audience. Of it. But I will say to people, that was it's an absolute rubbish copy. It's awful. The copy I've got now, and this is the book, I think, here we are. This was the last copy. It's not in print at the moment.
Maybe our audience can access the book through PDF form. Maybe they can buy it from you, the PDF, if you want to put out a limited edition now that they're listening to this.
Yeah, this will come to life again under my current publisher, but it will take time. But that's what it was. It's called Life of Boris Karloff. So you see where the influences come in, and it's got the pop culture icons. So I play with the icons with them. So I use characters. I don't name them as such, but
can we see that one more time? Can you hold that up one more time? Can we just
show that there? And you'll just see there's a little photo in the window of the house. If you can see,
I see. Oh, yeah. Wow.
And
that's awesome. That's a really great cover, actually. I really like that.
That's funny enough. That's my wife's artwork.
Really, really well made. I think it's really well made.
And so we that's the last copy, and so it comes out like little diary entries, and it's got some illustration in there, which is a bit embarrassing, but you'll see you might just see it. You got like little painting. These paintings were things I did when I was writing the book. I was in, I think, to be fair, at the time I was doing it, I was really frantic with it, and I was going all over the place with it. And some of it was excitement, but because of it was also during a very dark and bleak period of my life, I think that maybe some of it, the way I was going up, and I was buying canvases, and I was just buying oil paints, and I was just slapping it on, and I'm doing this, and I'm getting coats out of my head and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I think, and I can't do that now, and the people ask me why I don't know now. I said, because I think, to be fair, at that point, I think I was going through a sort of manic episode, because of what had gone on, the periods I've had,
and this was especially different than most things because, life is obviously a roller coaster. We have these periods, but you would say this
wasn't in a good place. I wasn't very healthy. I wasn't treating myself very healthily. So I was doing everything you wouldn't want to do. And so I was pretty self-destructive.
I think we all can, a lot of people can relate.
And this was that outlet. And I think I was just having a manic episode, and I just went, I'm going to try everything, anything, don't care, I'm going to do this. So I'll just go out, and I spent, must be about 200 pounds, 300 pounds on materials like the canvases and an easel and the paints and brushes, and I just went crazy with it. And these are the paintings that come from it, and I put them in there because I've still got the sketches I've done for them, as I say, but that's why they're in there. But say, to think that I actually did set out to become an author would be too much to say that. as I say, I found myself in the genre kind of by accident. As I say, this person encouraged me from MySpace, and that's how it all came through. And it just snowballed from there. I went on to do other things. Then I got onto Twitter, and then I got talking to an small independent filmmaker, and they wanted to do a short film. And out of the blue, they'd sent me a message saying, "I've read this that you put up on here and there." And I was like, "Okay." I went, "Would you like to do a film? Would you like to write a film?" And I was like, "What?" And I went, "We'd like you to write a screenplay for a short film we want to do." And I said, "No," I went,
Wow.
"I've never written a screenplay in my life. I don't know how to write a script or anything like that. I've just written these little few books." I mean, "Yeah, but we really want you to do it." And they kind of said, so I'd send them. So I just went with it.
It was something you projected. You projected something.
Yeah, I just went, right, okay, I'll sit down and I'll try and write it. And I was like, so I sat down to write it, and I'm thinking, right. And he said,
that's
"Don't worry
amazing.
about the action scenes and stuff like that. We can deal with that. You write the dialogue, stuff like that, what's going on. Just write it out." So I'd write it, and I'd send it off to him, and then he'd email me back, and he'd say, "Don't like this, can this be changed, blah, blah," and we'll go through it. And I think he went through about 7, 8, maybe I think he went as many as 10 different versions of the screenplay.
Wow.
Until they was happy. And then that's what came out, and that ended up being made into a short film, which people can find on, I think I posted up on YouTube, and people can find it on my Facebook page as well. It's free there. If you go to the videos, you'll be able to find it.
What's the Facebook page, and what's the name of the film?
The film is called Sophia, and
Sophia.
Sophia, yeah. The reason people call it Sophia, but the reason it's called Sophia, we didn't have a name for the film. We didn't really know what to call it.
It's a brilliant name, Sophia.
It was the Second World War. They wanted to do a Second World War film, and the name came around because it's the name of my wife's great grandmother, and she was German, and or her mother was German, and that's how the name came through. And Sophia is a Germanic name, so it kind of really worked well. So we asked for permission from her family to use her actual image. So that the photo that they use in the film, and you see on the back here, if I can see that is actually my wife's great grandmother or great grandmother, I think great grandmother. And that's her actual, and you actually see her actual photograph in the film.
Can we see that book again, front to back? That's your album covers, your book covers are just amazing.
That is the obviously the lead actor, John Solomonides, and the film was made by Silent Wood Films. I know they've got lots of little projects that they've been working on. I believe they've got there's some microfilms that they're working on, which I've written little bits and pieces for them for when they'll actually end up being able to be released. And I don't know, I've not had any information from companies, but they're in sort of that, what they call it, production hell, I think it is, where they just circle around that until such a time as someone can actually put things into motion and get it out there.
It's very similar here in Hollywood. Hollywood is no different.
Yeah, so that film is about 18-20 minutes long, and the entire film was made on the budget of about £1,000, I think. So there's a lot of favors called in and things like that, and
filmmaking is a collaborative process, and it's sort of you reach out to all your friends and you say,
so that's how that came about. It's on one of those things where I dabbled in Life of Boris Karloff is like a young adult YA kind of dark fiction, although there is some considerable language in there at times. And when it was pitched as a YA, I was a bit concerned. But a mother and a daughter end up, I think it was her daughter, I'm pretty sure. And then they reviewed it, left a review on a Facebook page somewhere, I think. And they turned around and said, I read it, and then I read it with my teenage daughter or something like that, and they absolutely adored it. I think it's brilliant. And they gave a wonderful review, and I was like, love that. But that thing, I was a bit concerned because of the language in there. And I deliberately, it's like, I didn't have much of an audience, so I didn't really care about the language. So when it started reaching some people, I was like, is this going to be an issue? Because as a parent, you don't really want your teenage child looking at this and going, oh, well, they're using that. And it's like, it wasn't angled towards you. So, but
it's mature content meant to be taken in a serious sense. Those children will always.
There's not to be honest, there are a couple of bits and pieces. There are situations there. It does cover some difficult situations. And it's the premise of that book is reminding people that family isn't just blood, it isn't biological. Family in its true sense doesn't just mean the people you live with, the people that you're related to. It's people who love you for who you are. And that's really the premise of that book. And what true family is often ends up not necessarily being those that you're related to. And so that was the message going through that. And I think that did resonate with quite a few people, which is really nice. But I say I've never really thought about being a dark fiction author. I mean, being labelled, being put into a category for my work is difficult because some people like it to be, referred to dark fiction. Some people call it just come and say horror. Or dark fantasy, and I've got elements of each, and I've gone through different genres. World War II drama and YA using adult horror, and I've gone into full horror, and some of the latest fiction that's been included in anthologies elsewhere has been in extreme horror. So when we're talking full body horror, full absolutely going OTT with the whole thing. But I'm coming back to where I'm more comfortable now.
All right, Rob, we're back on.
So, as I say, I'm now coming back to where I really started, in a sense, after Life of Boris Karloff and the earlier books. I really got into the atmospheric, the foreboding, so the Poe inspired, the Lovecraftian inspired, and as I say, what people would not tend to think when it comes to an author like myself. One of the big influences for me is Charles Dickens. And I've seen a few faces go completely blank and confused. And they say, well, your horror, what he's doing in there? For a start, he did ghost stories. Secondly, his influence is in characters. He knew how to write characters and create the characterization. And that's where a lot of my work is all characterization. So the horror element is kind of fringe. It sort of is on the outside. It just sort of seeps in. The main body of the work is all about the characters, and I build the characters and the relationship between the people. And so
absolutely,
it's more the horror is the situation they find themselves in, and with each other, pitted against each other, or whatever the case may be. So you really need,
these things are much scarier than the boogeyman too, by the way. These situations are much scarier than any horror thrasher novel you're going to read about any scary creature, if you can really identify.
And I see it's again, it's the unknown, it's the shadows, the shadow element of feeling that something's there and knowing something's there, but you can't see it. And it's that atmosphere in it. So a lot of my work is the building of the characters and in the placing of the atmosphere and building the tension. A lot of my book, the most popular books, don't really necessarily have a lot of physical horror. It's a sense of foreboding. It's a sense of the creeping terror. And it's the uncomfortable. You're sitting there feeling uncomfortable, and it's like, do I want to read the next bit? And that's what I'm trying to get you to do, is keep reading the next bit, but not want to read the next bit. That's right. Because that's what the characters are feeling. Do I want to go to the next room? Do I want to leave? What do I do?
Right.
And it's that feeling, but you can only get that if you can build the characters.
Absolutely.
Get that characterization. You get that rapport with the character. You're putting yourself in that character. You're then becoming that character. And you're then understanding how they're feeling. And that's then when you start to decide whether you want the character to live or you want them to die. And and I will write characters where I purposely want you to hate that character. I want you to want them to die. And then, that's where I can be a little mischievous and play with you and sort of say, I'll eat the character, and I've had a book where
that level of investment.
I'll introduce a character and I'll kill them off straight away. And my wife hates me for things like that. She'll be like, "How can you do that?" Inside, because it's breaking the tension.
Okay, Rob, we like this character.
Attention. Is to introduce someone that someone really likes and then snuff them out like that. And they go, "What was that all about? Why? Why did you do that?" And it's like, again, I'm playing with your emotions. And it then goes back to the person you're supposed to hate. When you realize it's them that's done it, you hate them all the more. So you want them. And it's going back to the classic tropes of you want the bad guy to pay. The bad guy has to pay at the end. And I'll keep going and I'll run with that. Mm-hmm. I'll run with that idea with the horror movies where the guilty must pay. And at the end of it, the bad guy, the villain, gets their comeuppance.
Justice will be served.
Exactly. And I'll play with it and I'll do that. And often what I do is I'll leave it hanging at the end, because quite often what I do is I like to play with that because it's a respected and well-served trope to go down, that the justice must be served, the bad guy must pay their penance. And what I do is then, because of that, I'll follow those rules. And then at the end, I'll go, well, actually, the bad guy doesn't get, doesn't.
Just to remind you that you're the god of your own.
Yeah,
you are the controller.
Exactly, because life isn't like that. Bad people do bad things and they get away with it. So you can't expect these things to just happen. People to get justice all the time. It doesn't happen. Justice happens rarely because people know what they're doing. And bad guys, if they're going to do something bad, they know how to do something bad and they know how to get away from it. So
very interesting. You're providing people obstacles to sort of make way for a thought process that allows them to work through the difficulties of decision making. At a certain point, I think the person and the page can separate, and you find yourself deciding, you're going to find yourself writing that story with the character saying, should I turn that doorknob or not? The person and the page dissolve.
Absolutely. And it's just, so I will play with people like that and I will leave and they'll go, but after all that, and the bad walks away, no harm, no foul, or they don't get no one gets to just, of course not. That's the thing. I said, but one of the things I do, it's also, another thing is, I could sit there, if I wanted, I could reach it to a conclusion, and it might take me another 20 pages, it might take me 2,000 pages to reach there. Do I really want to do that? And my biggest love is leaving, not so much a cliffhanger, but I love to leave my books open, because the whole thing is open to interpretation. They've all got their messages and they're all personal. So each reader takes something personal, their own perspective from it. And I can have 100 readers, and 100 readers will see a different, have their own take on it.
Interesting. You want them to create their own ending to the story.
Exactly. And that's a whole, I said, you can take this story and you, in your head, you can take this into TV land and you can have it, because go on and on and on and on. And you can create their endings. You can decide what happens afterwards. I've given you the world to play with. Now play in it. And you can have whatever happens, because there are no rules. And that's a point. There are no, we live in a society full of rules. But in the world itself, there are no rules. Nature shows you there are no rules. It has its own system, but it doesn't abide by its own rules. It breaks those rules all the time. You know, and
nature is the most unconventional thing we can think of, really. You can't predict anything when it comes to nature.
Exactly. I mean, one of the obscure examples I'll use is people get used to a certain method with nature. They'll go, right, it sets sort of characterization of animals and plant life, and they're all in their categories and all in a particular way and everything else. And they're all, and we've categorized them, we've genused them and everything. You go, yeah, that's great. That's right. Then nature provides, and you go, but nature provides, and nature shows us that and supplies us with that. But it then breaks that as well at the same time by going, right, you have lizards, and then you have your amphibians, and then from your amphibians you get things like newts, and then you get to salamanders, and then you go, okay, and then you go, and then nature provides you with the curveball, breaking its own rules by going, here's an axolotl. And people go, oh yeah, it's an axolotl, and you go, it's great, yeah. Oh, that's a cute little white thing, and some little frills with its gills on the outside and the water. You go, yeah. That's how it is. He said, but in the right conditions, out of that water, in the right conditions, with the right temperature and the right set, an axolotl stops existing. An axolotl becomes a salamander. It changes into a completely different species. So a salamander is an axolotl, but a salamander isn't born as an axolotl. It's born as a baby salamander, but an axolotl will, in the right conditions, change into a salamander. And this is where I go, and it's why I'm saying nature breaks these rules all the time. It sets these rules down and it breaks them, and it throws these curveballs in, and that's what I like to do, saying, look, this shows you, nature's showing you there are no rules. It puts them down so you can understand where you're going, but you've also got to understand there are no rules. So there's a reason why you have to go in a particular path. You can go wherever you want to. And so with my books, you can take it wherever you want to after the last page, because there are no rules to it. If you want that murderous villain or monster to come back and do even more destruction, you can do that. If you want the good guys, the final girl at the end, to then go on to become an absolute kick-ass and then hunt down the monster and destroy them, you can do that. But you've got to set that up in your mind, and how you've got to think about how that comes about. How are they going to do that? And
you have to allow yourself that freedom. It's like a blind person. How do they learn to walk and operate again? You have to sort of close your eyes and say, okay, where is my space in the room? Where can I take my story? You know where you can take it, and only you know where you can take it. And it's really awesome to hear you say exactly what you're saying. There's no rules. It's interesting. A quote that I really like is, Mother Nature supplies us with everything we need to do whatever we want, and she will provide us with all the consequences you can think of if we don't use those tools.
Absolutely.
You are a well-versed writer, and it shows that you have a level of professionalism that shows you can do these things. You're not a guy if you can follow along for the journey, it's going to be a journey, and you're going to get something out of it. You're going to get a life lesson, for lack of a better word. And who's not looking for life lessons out there?
absolutely. The thing what I don't do is I won't be very moralistic with it. I won't shove a moralistic lesson in there or a life lesson in there forefront and center. And you go, oh, we've all had those loads of films and books like that where you can see the message that the author wants and they're really ramming it home. This is what you should be thinking. I'll leave it to you. I'm saying that just there are good and decent things you can do.
You're striking nerves. People's nerves are being stricken.
And it's understanding humanity. Good. What are you gonna? What I like to try and explain to some people is that, and there's a phrase, I can't remember who used it, but when you say good people do bad things and bad people can do good things. And they're not necessarily for the same reasons, but they can have the same outcome. And so, we've all heard instances where decent people have gone out and have killed someone. That's a bad thing. You don't do that. But then you understand the context of why they've gone and done it. There's a reason behind it. And right. That reason might be what they're doing. You don't know if this gentleman started it's not black and white, it's grey. And I like to operate in the grey because everything happens there. And so you've got the two opposing parties doing similar things for different reasons. And you can still have that same, but it still amounts to a similar or same outcome. So I say good people can do bad things for good reasons, and bad people will do good things for bad reasons. So on the face of it, when you see the person doing you can have a polar opinion, because you might think the good person's a bad person because they're doing a bad thing, and vice versa. You haven't got the context, and it's understanding what's happening, why someone's doing something. You need to be able to take a step back, see what's happened before, see why they're doing it, understand the logic. It's psychology. Understand why someone's doing something. If you've got someone who or you suspect is a really bad person, but they're doing something good, why are they doing something? Usually selfish reasons. Whether it be money, greed, whatever the case may be, it's to serve themselves. Whereas a good person might be doing a bad thing, but it might be for an overall good reason. And it doesn't always serve the rights. Our laws aren't set up to handle that. We still have black and white laws. Whatever country you're in, you have black and white laws, and they don't always always equipped to understand and be able to deal with someone who's done something awful, but for the right reason, because the payoff for the good might be a bit later on. And so some of my stories have got those, some of my stories will have those elements in them, but I won't put it forefront. I won't be shoehorning that message to you. It's in the background. And often, I've had people say to me, they stop and think afterwards, and it's only like, and they're thinking afterwards. And I've said people saying to me, keep thinking about that book and what happened,
Absolutely.
I want you to keep thinking about it. But the number one thing I want from anyone who reads my book is just to enjoy it. Go along for the ride, and I hope you enjoy it. That's the one thing. If I have one person read my book, only one person read one of my books, and they enjoyed it, I've done my job. What they get out of it is down to them, and it's not my business to know out of it. But if they enjoyed it, then I've done my job, because I enjoyed writing it, and now they're enjoying reading it. So now, to me, that's absolutely job done. And I don't necessarily, I don't look to achieve that as such. I said to people, my number one goal in writing is for the enjoyment of it. I love doing it. That's why I do it. So it's not financially motivated. I'm not trying to become the next Stephen King or the next Clive Barker or the next Dean Koontz. I'll never reach that kind of level of fame or financial security or anything like that. I'll always be right at the bottom. My reason for doing it is because I love to do it. I love to write, and I'll continue to do it whether I make money or not.
You're a true artist.
Someone who enjoys what you've done, enjoys reading it, that's where the real satisfaction comes into it. That's when I can sit back and say to myself, I've done something, I've achieved it. I've achieved something there.
It also comes to say why somebody chooses to do something, right? If you're doing something for the wrong reasons, you want everybody to respond, you want it to go, what is viral, you want so many eyes on it, and that's a road, that's an opposite direction that you're facing. And it's really inspiring to see that you have a level of maturity for your work and appreciation, really. If there's anything you want, it's appreciation for what you've made, what you've created. And once you put it out there and allow other people to say to you what its worth is, what its message is, I keep using the word message, but I know that for you, it's a sense of you want to read it and you want people to just take it in how they take it in. You don't really, why you wrote it.
It's not up to me how they perceive it or the message they take from it. That control leaves my hands the moment it's published. That it's no longer my work then. That's no longer my world. I have no control of it. I have no ownership of that. That world then becomes the world of the person who then decides to pick it up and read it.
There's a saying, post and ghost. That's a saying, you throw something up and you don't look at it, post and ghost. And it sounds like that's, you write it, you put it out, and on to my life. I'm going to go live my life and gain more, get more for the next one.
I mean, it's really heartening to have someone say, I really enjoyed your book. I really loved it. And that does, obviously makes me feel really good. But it's not the defining reason for me writing. The reason is purely selfish. I love to do it. I love writing. I discovered it late. I discovered my passion for writing later in life, but nevertheless, I love writing. And so when I am able to sit down and really just let it flow, I feel fantastic for that period of time. And it might seem to some that I'll lock myself away like a hermit, like you hear the stories of people doing. But it's not because I want to lock myself away because I don't want to see anyone. It's because I love writing. I am antisocial. There's no two ways about it. I don't have an awful love of lots of people or anything like that. I'm very anxiety-ridden, and self-conscious and everything else. But I deal with that now. I've learned how to deal with that. I've learned that to have. I've got an extrovert persona.
How do you deal with that? Because lots of people have anxiety, social anxiety, and you know what? At the end of the day, forgive my language, but I say fuck all that, and you live your life, and you just do what you want, and forget all that stuff. Because if you can't even put gasoline without looking the other way for why people are judging you, or opening a door, or pouring your coffee creamer, and you're thinking you're taking too long, it's just the way you don't want to live.
Yeah, it's for me, it's one of those. It's a double-edged sword. I've learned to understand that's who I am.
Understanding anxiety and what it is and where it comes from.
And so I've learned that, I mean, there are lots of very helpful, wonderful people that will help people with anxiety and all sorts of mental illness and stuff like that. I'm not saying that I have mental illness, but
we all have a mental illness. It's called living life in this world and trying to get by and do what we can. We're all walking on eggshells. We've got one foot on eggshells, the other one on ice.
Well, that's right. And so I've never sought out conversations with anyone, although I would advocate anyone to seek out people to have conversations with, professionals, and that I will advocate that absolutely. For me, I've never sorted out. Because for me personally, and I'll never say to people follow what I do, because you get yourself into all sorts of terrible shit.
Take it for what it is. Take it as my experience, but everybody's experience.
What I do is, I will say, never follow what I do, because I don't. I'm a hypocrite to myself. I will advocate for things, but I can see what works for other people, and I'll say, look, try it. Don't, the worst that can happen is it doesn't help, so you can look elsewhere. Follow advice. I'm not a person to give advice. The only advice I get is talk to people, and I'll talk to lots of people, but with personally, I say I don't seek out the professional help. I've never done that, but I've come to learn more about myself, and I've learned that I'm very I'm a very determined person, and it's one of those things where it doesn't always it's not always the right thing to do. I will keep going. I'm determined to see things through, and I will see it through whether it's good for me or not. Once I start something, I've got to finish it. I'll go through. I don't know any other way than work through it.
It's something inside of you. It's a burning fire.
Yeah, I have to just keep going. It's like a self command to just keep persevering, even when I know that I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to achieve what I want. I've got to keep doing and fail. Because if I don't fail, if I don't go through it and fail, then in my mind, I'm always going to be kicking myself. I know I kick myself for not having just pursued it and kept going and failed. A failure to me, I failed, fuck it. And I'll go and I'll continue a different direction.
Failure is a natural.
It sucks to fail, and I'll out, but I dust myself off and I keep going. And with the anxiety, it's a similar sort of thing. I understand that I've got this thing where I don't like being around lots of people. I don't like having people around me. I like very few people around me. I can be absolutely online. People will speak to me. I'm open, and I'll tell you everything. I'm great. I'm social. But to meet me, I don't. My wife used to live in London, and we live about 30 odd miles away from London, and that's where I was born and I was raised. I don't like going into London. There's far too many people. So big cities are a big issue with me, especially like the underground, and you get and I hate all that. I have a huge proximity self-imposed proximity warning. So people come close, I get really ratty and I get annoyed, and I can be really horrible, because I don't like people. I'm not essentially a people person. So when I'm
especially in those areas, those social dynamics that those areas create is just so different than being in a place where it's not everything that's going on. Those things are machines operating that you don't want to be any part of.
Exactly. I am that loner. I'm that person. You go to a party, I'm not the life of the party. I'm the loner dude sitting in a corner or standing in a corner somewhere down in the whiskies. That's me. I'll stay out of the way. If someone comes up to me, I'm sizing them up. As soon as they come towards me, I'm sizing up. What do I do? And so the way I've learned to do with it now, with this kind of thing, I've done certain signing events over the years, and it forces you to have to face that. But in my normal, my normal sort of skin, if you like, I can't face that. I can't.
You don't want to be the. It doesn't sound like you want to be.
I'll be in the last one. I'll be in the last signing I did. I'll be in the hotel room, and I'll be pacing around. I'll be. I can't do it. I can't do this. I can't do this shit. Fuck it. Don't care. I can't do this. I can't go with these people here. And it's my wife that pushes me out there. But as I said, my wife, if someone was to pick me up, and put me in the middle of all these people, crowd of people, and say, right, and these people will come to see me, then what happens is it's like I put on the Iron Man suit. I suddenly snap into that suit and I become that extrovert person. So I will show off, and it's my coping mechanism, how I deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read lots of literature and spoken to lots of people and say it's not a very healthy thing to do. There are studies around psychopathy where, you know, many psychopaths are a bit like, have that thing where they're very charming and very great, but it's a shell. It's not the actual person in there. The person in there is very dark. And I'm not a dark person. I'm not a horrible person, but it's the same thing. It's that shell. It's not, when you see me, and I might say something, you're not actually meeting the real me, because real me is like sitting at home having a glass of whiskey and doesn't want to see the world. And when I'm ready, I'll go off and writing on my own. But when I'm
on your terms,
yeah, when I'm in that situation where there's lots of people around, I'll then put that suit on and I'll show off and I'll do things. I'll do things that I would never normally do. And that's the way I can deal with it. But I will say to people, don't do this, because it pays you back later to do it. You know, you feel the effects of it later on because it plays with your head doing it this way. I don't know any other way of doing it, but you suffer later on for having by doing it this way. So I'll say to people, when you're finding yourself like that, talk to lots of people that go through these situations. There'll be much better help. I can only do what I do, and I don't advocate what I do for other people. But, it's the only way I can operate, because I've found I can't operate any other way. I've tried some of the professionals, the way they say things, and I can't operate like that. I think I'm too long in the tooth in the way I've learned to deal with it personally on my own, in my own way, singularly. It's like that thing where it's like a habit. Once you've built that habit up, to break it, unless it's
it doesn't sound to me, Rob, like you're
to break it, unless you're there has to be something extraordinary to break that habit completely. If you don't have that's something that breaks a habit completely, it's ingrained in. It's like certain behaviors are completely ingrained.
There needs to be impetus. There has to be impetus for the break. Otherwise, you're sort of like sacrificing for a reason that's not worth sacrificing, and it might just be a sacrifice lost.
Absolutely. So I think the way I operate now is just, it's ingrained now, and it's become part of who I am. So it's the way I am able to operate and deal with life. It's once I've come into that environment, I put that shell on, and I become that.
It doesn't sound to me, Rob, like you're fabricating anything. It just sounds to me like you're accessing another side that you need to access in order to provide the information and energy that the people who come to see you would sort of want. But I don't think you're it can feel that way, I think so, but I don't feel like you would be fabricating yourself. This is Rob, and this is Rob. This is Rob how he likes to be. This is Rob how he has to be. Hey, I'm Rob. Normally I'd be at my house and probably not be doing this, but it's great to meet you guys. Yeah, I'm for me, that's what's helped. I'm like, hey, honestly, I'm doing what I have to do at the moment because this is what I have to do at the moment. But I think restrictions like such to say I'm this way and only this way, it's sort of like if you're an author and you become the world's most famous author, you want to just give yourself out there. And if it's the not so social self, I think a lot of people still appreciate that. I think we can see that naturally. There's something about the human eyes, the body, the mind. We can sort of just intuitively see when someone is, if you don't want to talk to people, that's fine. Tim Burton, he's a famous American director, out here in America from the guy doesn't really come out much, and he's kind of a weirdo, they'd say, but some of the weirdos are the most coolest guys out there, and he's made some of the coolest movies out there.
I am the weirdos that always, I tend to attract them. So there's unstable people, they tend to be attracted to me straight away. It's like a moth to a flame, they come buzzing straight to me.
So you must have the best house parties.
I like that because I love interesting talk. There's plenty of strange people where I live. Unfortunately, they're not necessarily the kind of strange I like, but it just reminds you that they're strange people and life is strange, and I love to inhabit that strange.
Inhabit the strange, welcome the strange, live in the strange.
Absolutely. So I have an eclectic taste in all sorts of things, literature, collecting figures, and collecting things. So you get people who collect nothing but Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. My wife does, or nothing but Stephen King. And I have an eclectic mix of things, and I'll mix and match with things. I've got so many weird things, and it's kind of the way I work as well mentally. I have an eclectic mix of things going on, and it makes for something so strange. And whenever something's completely off the norm, completely strange, completely left field, my eyes always turn that way. I always go for the things that people don't.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I always find them the most attractive things. Take for example, people might be attracted to
attention to detail.
Go to the zoo. People are attracted to the lions and the tigers and to some extent maybe the wolves and the elephants, and they go to the giraffes. And don't get me wrong, I love those creatures. But you get me in there, and suddenly you'll see pigs. Well, I'm seeing pigs. You've got a lion there, but I'm seeing pigs. So I'm like, hello, pigs. I love pigs. I like the goats, and I might see the llamas, and I'm straight over to the llamas because they're just weird and they're wonderful. So I'm straight there one. Whereas everyone else is going, I'm going over to see the elephants or whatever. It's like, yeah, great. Go out. I want to see these because these fascinate me more, and they just seem to have a completely different persona, personality, completely different way of being, and that always attracts me. So anything strange, anything not everything unconventional, my eyes get turned that way, and I'll look at it, and then I'll decide whether I like it. And most of the time I do like it, but you choose what you choose. So strange people, I'm always interested, and they always seem to be attracted to me. So I'll engage them in conversations. And people go, you've always been on like the bus, and the crazy dude or the crazy lady comes on, and everybody's going, they size them up straight away. Come on, there might be these crazy old ladies who've got no top teeth and just bottom teeth, and they're national, and people going, oh, okay, we've got one coming in, and you can just see everybody uniformly going, trying to hide themselves. And I've been sat there, and they can look at this whole crowd of people. I could do the same thing. I could do that. I can do that. Fine. But they always seem to find my line of sight, and they'll lock eyes with me and like straight to me. And they can look eyesight with everybody else, but they just seem to come straight to me. And I'm like, fine, come to me. I'll talk to them. And people are like, and I'm like, well, you don't know what they've been through. You don't know what's happening. So they want to talk to me about purple flying pigs or whatever the case may be, strange creatures from the netherworlds that inhabit their sink, whatever. Let them talk. I don't care. It's great material for me if I want to write books about that, so that's fine. But at least
I was about to say, for as a writer, you know what? If nobody wants anything to do with that, give it all to me. I'll take, you'll take it in, and you'll have those
I
conversations.
absorb it all. People have said to me before, do you have these ideas? You write them down and stuff like that, and you hear it so often. Writers, they have a pad and a pencil, or pad and pen, and something like beside their bed, and then they have a weird dream. They immediately wake up and they scroll it down like that, and they say, "Well, me, I have nothing beside my bed. I'll have my phone. I'll have a cup. I'll have a glass or a cup, and mostly a cup of coffee or something like that. And I'll have my crazy dream, and I won't remember a sodding thing about it afterwards." What happens is, and I've learned that it's my own body's trick, my own brain's way of dealing with it. What it does is, instead of waking me up and going, "You need to write this down," because I just can't do that, whatever reason, it comes out later on. So when I sit down to write a story, the weird things that have gone on in my dreams and things like that, they start to come out as different little scenes or aspects in the story that I'm writing.
Do you have a reoccurring dream or situation that occurs throughout your sleep that you can recur? Because you say you don't really write your dreams down, you don't really remember them. But for me, I don't either. But one thing that sort of happens often in my dreams is I'm in the ocean and there's large fish, large whales and sharks. And it's like insanely, it's like megalodon size. It's like the fish that you don't see. And I think it's like the deep ocean, and I don't really know what that means. Do you have something similar, a dream, something?
I don't have a recurring dream as such. If I do, like I say, I never remember them. They never really stick with me. I've had dreams that have stuck with me since a couple of particular dreams that have just stuck with me. They don't recur, but they've just stuck with me. I've never used them anywhere, but
you don't have to share if you
probably
don't want to.
Influenced the way I write things, but they would. One of them is really strange, and it terrified me when I was a kid. Absolutely terrified me beyond belief. And it was, I remember, I must have been about 13, I think, and I was asleep in my bedroom, and I'm lying there, and I had this dream, and I had this big metal ball, like a big metal sphere,
Could it reflect? Was it where you were seeing a reflection?
And the best thing I can describe is, if you can picture what's the
like a stainless steel metal object.
Stainless steel, like a big, imagine like an enormous ball bearing. That's the way I can think.
Large bearing, yep.
And I remember it dropping down onto me, and I remember feeling the weight of it and being crushed of it on me, and I couldn't get it off. And I'm pushing up, and then it goes up again, and then it slowly descends and hits me again, and I couldn't get it off. And I remember, I remember hearing screams and screaming, and I was calling to someone, but I remember hearing screams. I didn't understand where the scream was, and I only become aware that the scream was me.
In sleep paralysis.
And I was screaming it, and my mum would come in, and my brother would come in, and they were saying, "What is it?" And I'm saying, the ball, at this ball. And they were mishearing me, and they was thinking a nightmare. Oh, it was horrible. And so my mum's trying to console me, trying to make me feel better and reassure me and things like that. And I was trying to say, this ball, but I just couldn't verbally communicate it properly, and that was, but I've never used that anywhere, and I never found a place where it seems appropriate to use that.
Have you dreamt something similar before? Have you dreamt anything similar? Like this ball sounds like it was heavier than it looked, even though it was a larger bearing ball size object, I can imagine, but it seems like it had beyond like superhuman weight that you couldn't perceive.
It's so I'd say I've never used it anywhere, and I don't foresee a point at which it would ever appear in any of my books, but I think it's that sensation of the terror, the futility of trying to to get this thing off me and to escape, and not being able to get out of it, not being able to call for help and things like that. I think it's those feelings, those sensations, those emotions, and the overall experience. I think that's one of the things I've taken from it that influences the way I write. And when I write a story, the atmosphere that comes into it, I think that has influenced it. The only other dream I remember having that stuck with me was I remember I dreamt that I was going through a forest somewhere. I remember seeing a robed figure it was a figure in a black robe, and I
couldn't
saw
make
them
out the
immediately,
figure?
thought this was bad news, so I've tried to avoid them. And no matter how I avoided them, they always seem to be walking beside me through a break of trees, the other side of the trees.
Terrifying.
And eventually they turn around and they come face to face with me. The head's down, the hood's down, and as they lift up, the hood lifts up, and all I see is the central part of the face, and suddenly it clocks on that the face is that of a wolf. And then more and more suddenly I've become aware there's more and more of them. And I don't know what their intentions are. I'm afraid because I don't know what their intentions are. I don't know whether they're good, they're bad, or what, but they're, and so I get so scared about this, of not knowing what they're going to do. Then, the dream breaks. But I just remember the experience of walking through and being not pursued, but walking alongside them, and then becoming aware that there's so many of these wolf
creatures.
To this day, I don't know. I've looked into the meaning of it, and nothing it comes any close to what I saw in my dream. No, there's nothing written down like that. Saying these hooded wolf people.
How do you feel about the idea that when we're asleep, the dormant subconscious mind is sort of our truest selves? We are in the environment where we really are always operating in, but we sort of are disillusioned by all of this societal stuff, all of the anxiety, all of that. You got to pay bills, you got to do things, you got to eat food, I got to make food, I got to eat food, I got to drink water, I have to do stuff. But when we're asleep, how do you feel about that being? Do you believe that that's, a place where
I do think that there is, I think probably the majority of it is, as what a lot of the experts say, is your brain's working through puzzles that it's come across that it's not been able to deal with during the waking hours. And it's kind of working its way through these puzzles, getting them in some sort of order. So then when you're awake again, you have a fresh perspective and you are able to solve the puzzles. You've now got the answer. It suddenly sort of occurs to you, oh, if I do that, I think it uses certain images to try and put order to things that have happened and to give you ways of dealing with things, experiences and problems. But I think there's a very small section that I don't think we will explain, that are there for different reasons. I don't know what they're for. For some of us, they're creative avenues that some actively use, and some of us use subconsciously. Mine is used subconsciously as I write. Others actively use them and use it as their inspiration. Go, right, I remember that dream, I'm going to use that, and it forms one of their books. But I don't think it does. The mind is such a complex thing
Some people are ritualistic about their sleep. You know, they really prioritize this process of preparing for bed. They don't look at the phone. You know, they're really insane. Some people really go to the extremes. How are you with sleep? How many hours of sleep do you time your sleep? Are you somebody who just sleeps whenever the eyes shut down? Do you go to sleep at a specific time every night?
Um, I I don't have a ritual around sleep. I sleep when I sleep. I don't know how long I
How,
tend to
how,
sleep for.
how many hours? You don't have like a time you wake up every day? Like, I want to wake up and see the sunrise at 4 in the morning, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't really care. You just wake up.
Yeah, I mean, well, I do like to be up in the morning if but in my day job I do shift work, so my shifts vary. So
Are you a night
I
owl?
kind of wake up.
Would you consider yourself more of a night owl?
I can be very much, but I'm equally as happy to get up early in the morning. But it depends. At the moment, it all depends on what shifts I'm doing with the day job. But if I'm off, I do tend when I'm off, I do. If I've not been doing say like night shift, and I've got like a normal regular day, then I do like to be up relatively early. Anywhere between 6 and 8 a.m. will be a good time to be up because I can get things done around the house. I can do whatever, you know.
Of course,
But
but this
I'll
is not
equally
something.
be at home working, writing, writing stories or just playing around on a computer online or whatever until 4 a.m.
You don't have any children? No children?
I've got one son.
One son. All right. Nice.
He's all grown up now. So I'm closer
Nice.
to being a granddad than I'm,
Very exciting. That's a new. It's going to be exciting to be able to pass on all that wisdom and all that stuff. You know.
Yes. I hope to be able to pass on being weird to any grandchildren that turn up. I'll be that weird granddad that people warn their kids about.
Well, Rob, I really appreciate you talking with me, Rob. We could go on for hours. You know, I think you have a lot to offer the world, and I'm really excited to just, put this out there and people can get to talk to you. You know, like you said, you're not somebody who's out there trying to get noticed. I reached out to you and I said, I think you're an interesting character, and I want to talk to you.
It was a lovely surprise when you contacted me to ask me if I would do this. It was a wonderful surprise because I've done other podcasts before and it's always been they've been very organised about it, and I've reached out to other people and done things. But to get an invite like this out of the blue was a wonderful surprise, and it's to me it's very humbling that you would reach out to me and say, I would love to do something with you. Because, as I say, I don't put myself out there. There's lots of things going on about with people, authors promoting their work, and how do you go about
lots of writers use different names. I just recently discovered, it's been a long time, but some people don't really know this, but a lot of writers choose to go under different names. What would you call them? Aliases. They don't even really care for the recognition. It's just the story.
Yeah. Mine, I did think at one point of using an alias. I never really. The only alias I've found that I really enjoyed was already being used.
That's the worst.
And I did look at other aliases that had relevance towards my family and what have you. And I sought permission from family to say, look, would it be okay? And it was like, yeah, that's fine. But in the end, it didn't feel right to do it. I'd already built up a kind of small, tiny sort of core readership. I thought by changing my name, saying like there's a lot of work changing everything. I'd had everything self-published at that time and changing everything over, and I wasn't sure of how you go about the royalties, alias, and I didn't understand any of that, and it just, I felt I was concerned really that maybe I would lose readership,
Which
and
happens.
not because I'm worried about not having the readers. It was more that I appreciated those few people that I did have, and I didn't want to alienate them. So I just ended up saying, you know what, it's easy for me just to be me.
You need a team behind you. Sometimes it's one of those things where, you know, you shouldn't have to be the one to really publicize it, because you're not the one to really want to do that. It's such an uncomfortable process, but at the same time, I suppose we're very fortunate to have the platform to put it out there and be noticed, right? But, you know, sometimes.
Yes, I mean, if the world as it is now, you don't really have big publishing houses anymore. You've got like 4 or 5, maybe half a dozen, I would say, big publishing houses. You know, you have like subsidiaries for like Barnes and Noble. They have theirs. You have like Penguin and Random House and things like that. The big ones, and they tend to be the big name authors. So for anyone who's not an established name, it's very rare that you get into the big names, and you don't. And even with those big names, you don't get the big money sort of, right, we want, you know, we're going to pay you X amount of thousands of pounds or dollars or whatever for a 3-4 book deal. Right? You don't get that anymore.
Yeah, it's sort of similar to like music today. You know, the only music getting recognition is what do you call it? Culturally popular, and so you know, where's rock and roll and all this other stuff? What happened to that?
Absolutely. So, so a lot of people, you find so many authors now, the majority of authors are under small press, and they don't have the finances to be throwing out big marketing campaigns. So everything's very low key, sometimes somewhat underground. So it's all social media, and it's going through, as I say, with the promotion yourself, you find there's conversations going on at the moment about promoting their work, and whether it's worth the cost of promotion, or whether it's you're better off just focusing on connecting with readers you have and potential readers, and engaging in conversation and getting readers that way, rather than having big ad campaigns going out and spending the money on it. And I've tried both. I've tried the, throwing loads of posts out on social media and not really getting attraction. I think you can be just so overwhelmed by all this stuff coming at you, and you just don't want to know anymore. It's like, God, I've seen this ad so many times, or this person keeps posting. These books might be really good, but I'm so bored of seeing them post an ad for their book and buy my book. You lose interest.
It's not a good feeling to feel like you're suffocating people with your marketing.
So I do those ads every now and again, a bit of promotion every now and then, but it's every now and again now. And now I just, if people want to find me, they can find me. I'm on all social networks pretty much, the major ones.
What are the names of your social media?
So you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, which I don't utilize as much as I should do, because I don't really know what.
You could post your out here.
It's like I try and angle things towards my work as much as possible, but because you want to get a few sales, you want to get some sort of thing going. But other than those books, you got authors going that this is my life, and they'll post pictures of them doing this or that. And I don't really have a life outside of writing this book. I don't really do anything. I watch some programs, I watch some films, I play a couple of computer games here and there, and I don't really do much. So for me to post pictures up on Instagram of me doing something, it's going to be pretty arsehole boring, because it's going to be me and a cup of coffee and a cigarette. It's going to be me sitting there watching a YouTube video. I don't do anything marvelous. For me with Instagram, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship at the moment. I don't really know how to utilize it properly. But
Well,
I try to have a bit of fun where I can. And you know, I do enjoy it. I think it's different. It's a different avenue. So I'm on Twitter, which I don't. Again, Twitter, I'm in there often, but again, I don't utilize it very well because I'm really technologically useless.
I wouldn't say that, but there's something to say about the strong and silent type and keeping the mystery alive, letting the work speak for itself. And hopefully this interview, gets some buzz, and let's see if we can get some more eyes, because at the end of the day, like I said, you should be able to focus on your work and just, it's not to say we're expecting things, but we have it here. We're going to put it out there. And if anybody likes it, they know where to find you. Rob Sheperd is the name for where they can find you.
If people want to find, they can find me on Twitter. I'm at Rob_Sheperd. I think it's the official Rob Sheperd. I think is that your handle. Instagram's the same. Official Rob Sheperd. Facebook, you find me on there. You find my personal one on there, but you also find I've got an author page on there. You can find me. They can go to my publisher's website, which is TerraTract Publishing. I believe it's terratractpublishing.com.
Okay, you can send that to me and I'll make sure to provide it here, and it'll be there.
And and they can email me. If people want to, I'm open to people contacting me, whether it's through social media or if they want to be a bit more private and they want to send me an email, they can send me an email. Which is, I've got Rob Sheperd, which is 00@gmail.com. Find me, an email. I'm open to that. I've got a YouTube page. If people will find me there, they'll find trailers and books and stuff. And I've got a few. I've been reading through Semi-Animus.
Very nice, very nice. Audio book? Is it like an audio book you have up?
There isn't an official audio book. We're still working on finding someone. It probably will happen at some point, but when that will be, I don't know. At the moment, I'm just doing it for a bit of interaction with people, seeing if people enjoy it. So I'm just reading it myself. I'm not a narrator, so there are lots of mistakes and me and get tongue-tied and all that. But it is what it is. I just love doing it. I've got a couple of Q&A videos I put up. I'm maybe thinking of doing another Q&A soon on YouTube, doing a live Q&A. So if anyone wants to find me, as I say, find me on YouTube. I've got lots of bits and pieces on there and
we'll include all of those things. We'll include everything here, and down below you'll see that.
If anyone, I'll put it on social media before. If people want something in particular they would like to see me cover on YouTube, I'll do it. Over the last few years, I've been teaching myself how to do YouTube now. I don't have an expensive setup. It's just me and a cheap microphone and a computer, and away I go. But
that's all it takes. That's all it takes today, though. At the end of the day, that's all it takes. So
absolutely. So I'm open to. I'd like to put more content up on the YouTube, just for the enjoyment for myself and get interaction with readers, people that enjoy my work. And if there's things people want to see me covering in my YouTube, then I want get hold of me and let me know. But as I say, you can find me anywhere, and I really appreciate you inviting me on here. It's been an absolute pleasure. If
you have anything else that you are releasing in the future, we'd love to have you back on, and we'll chat some more.
Absolutely. I've got. I will have a follow-up to Semi-Animus coming soon, because it will be a trilogy.
All right. Do we have a title yet, or are we going to wait for the next interview to release everything, all the information?
I've got some books being re-released. So there are books. I don't know if I've got them, but there's a book called Friends Like Us that will be re-released under TerraTract Publishing. I've taken it off because it was self-published. I've taken it off, so they can't actually buy it now. Okay. But that'll be re-released. So there are some re-releases coming, and there are some new books coming. The follow-up to Semi-Animus is going to take a while. Yeah, it's probably going to be a fair chunker. The last book, Semi-Animus, was about 240 pages. This is about 200 or 100 and something pages. Next one's going to be much bigger because I've got to tie lots of things into it. So that might take a fair while, but there are books coming. There'll be a collection of short stories coming. I've been known for that over the years.
Well, it's very exciting.
There is lots of stuff coming. It's just getting through it all. But there are books on their way to being published again or being published. It's just a waiting. Is ready and say it's ready to go.
But we're looking forward to it.
Anytime you want to invite me, I'd love to be and in whatever capacity you want me on, I'm happy to come. I just feel really privileged that you wanted me to be on here, and it's an absolute pleasure. It was a lovely surprise.
Thank you, Rob. Likewise, like I said, it was an absolute pleasure, and we'll make sure to have you on again for the next book when it comes out, and we'll make sure to include everything you have available currently so that people can purchase it and can see it, and just we'll include everything in there.
Yeah, absolutely. There are, I think, 3 books in the moment are on Kindle that are free. I can't remember how long for, but next couple of days, I suppose, I think. So if they want to check those out, you've got The Caretaker, which is a straight up horror. You've got Dark Worlds, which is a short collection of short stories, and there's another one which I can't remember, which is brilliant. Gardening, it's it, which is a fun one. They're free to get right now on Kindle, so
nice.
Go for it. It's been nice. Been a nice little surprise. I'll throw them up there as a free from Kindle. They Amazon give you the ability to put them out. They give you like 5 days every so often to put them out for free. 5 days for free promotion. So you can buy them for free. So I'll do that. And this time around, people have been quite popular, so it's been quite nice that they've hit the top 100 in the free download. So I was quite happy with it.
Nice. Okay.
For a niche writer like me, that's what I tend to be. I have a very small niche readership, so I don't tend to top any charts anywhere. You kind of find my books in the millions in the rankings and stuff like that, which is fine. But it's just nice every now and again to see that. It's like a little buzz you get. It's like, oh, look, I've got number, I'm in the top 10 or whatever, just for that short period is wonderful, because for that little short period you go, sometimes I can feel just a little bit like Stephen King, or I can feel a little bit like, Craig Masterton or someone like that, or James.
It shows that it's validation that there's something there. There's a hidden treasure there, and we're going to show that.
I think some people like to take the risk on a book, especially when it's a Kindle book and it's free. People go, oh, I'll try that out. And that's fine by me. Even if people don't like it, they can delete it off their Kindle and never have it back again. And that doesn't bother me either. It's nice to have someone take a chance on you, especially when you're not a known name. You're an unknown author to most people. And so when people do take that chance, it's always wonderful. And I never forget how, people don't really understand how appreciative, especially I am, when people do that. I know there's some people that all know have downloaded and say, oh, I've downloaded this, it's wonderful. But when there's a certain number of people that don't know you, they've never heard of you, and they take a chance on it, that's really humbling, and we really appreciate it, especially unknown authors myself. We really appreciate when people do that. So
thank you, Rob. Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure, Rob. Like I said, absolute pleasure. You're an awesome person to talk to, and I'm really happy to say that we're friends now and we can talk, and we'll have you back on soon.
Contact me anytime. If you want to message me anytime, you can. Just message. You can find me. Just always happy to talk, whether it's on video or just personally.
Okay.
It's as I say, I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and it's really kind, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. Sounds good to me. All right, Rob. Well, it was a pleasure once again. Rob Sheperd. We can find you. The official Rob Sheperd is the social media. We're going to include everything in here so everybody can see it anyways, but we'll have the official stuff all up there. Thank you again, Rob.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Rob. All right. Very nice, Rob. Well, we're okay for here from now. And so if you want to send me like any covers of your book that I'm going to use for the cover of the episode, it'd be really awesome. Anything you got?
Yeah, certainly. I can post those to you. I don't know, but I'll do it either by phone or I'll do it on the computer. I'll post messages to you with those covers. I've got a bunch of covers for books, so I'll send them to you, and you can use whichever ones that you want to.
It'll piece together really nicely.
Very brilliant. Again,
very
thanks so much for asking me. It was a real nice surprise, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it was a good time, Rob. It was an absolute great time. So we'll do it again soon whenever you want to talk about, some new stuff coming up. So we'll make sure to set it up and make it happen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, take care. Have a wonderful night. I know it's nighttime out there.
Yeah, will do. Thank you very much. Take care.
Likewise.